Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Thursday, October 3rd, 2024, National No Sugar Day. To promote a healthier lifestyle, sugar has essentially become the number one enemy of your good health. And if you are going to participate, that means there's almost nothing you can eat today because almost everything has sugar in it. For Jews around the world, today is the second day of the Rosh Hashanah observance as Israel remains on high alert. The Middle East, oil prices, by the way, continuing to rise. The vice presidential debate and hurricane relief efforts are the big headlines.
And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met.
That is, of course, Vice President Harris on the ground in Augusta, Georgia yesterday. And the country is outraged. Not only people affected by the hurricane, but people everywhere on every social media platform. Billions to Ukraine, billions on illegal aliens who are also getting free hotels, by the way, and $750 to tax-paying American citizens in desperate need of everything. It's despicable, really. That's the only word to describe it. Despicable. DHS Secretary Mayorkas, who absolutely has to be fired at this point, said FEMA doesn't have enough money because more hurricanes are expected, which means they'll have to dole out more money. And this is President Biden yesterday in North Carolina.
There are no Democrats or Republicans, only Americans. And our job is to help as many people as we can, as quickly as we can, and as thoroughly as we can.
No Republicans or Democrats, just Americans. Well, North Carolina's Governor Roy Cooper, by the way, is a Democrat. In Georgia, Republican Governor Brian Kemp says he had to make a phone call to the White House because only 11 of 90 counties in his state were included in the FEMA Declaration.
When the first emergency declarations came down, there was only 11 counties in that. A lot of people were outraged, including me, because there was such devastation in up to 90 counties. So we called the White House. We spoke to the president's chief of staff, the FEMA administrator, and said, "Look, you're sending the signal that you're not paying attention to some of these rural communities."
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Maybe the October surprise will be the Biden-Harris administration spent all of our money on illegal immigrants and Ukraine, leading to more of a revolt than we're already seeing and the loss of an election. Yes, there will be more hurricanes, like Mayorkas said. So what happens then? This is simply unacceptable. Millions of Americans in true despair will not stand by and accept it. As for yesterday's coverage of the debate,
Hi, 911. I'd like to report the death of a political campaign. Last night's debate, ladies and gentlemen, consultants and pollsters, political analysts and strategists, is exactly why they don't want Tim Walz doing interviews. Look no further than this answer.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
The awkward pause, but I misspoke? No. Misspeaking is when you say this.
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters. I've seen it.
So the memes are endless. That's misspeaking. Your lie about Tiananmen Square and when you were there, that's a lie. You just can't admit it. Look, I think J.D. Vance did a magnificent job. But the one thing I would have done differently if I was J.D. Vance, and this is constructive criticism because I loved it, was right after that, I would have gone after Waltz on stolen valor allegations. Hey, Tim, you said you carried weapons of war at war. Care to correct that? No? Okay, how about correcting the rank at which you retired at? What was that rank again? Oh, was it Command Sergeant Major, as your coin that you had made said? No, it wasn't. Or you dipped out of your unit's deployment to Iraq. Care to explain that? No, you don't want to do that either. How about your coaching position? Was it the head coach? Or were you actually the assistant coach? Tim, you said that Amber Thurman would be alive if it weren't for Georgia's abortion restrictions. Do you want to tell the audience how she really died? Oh, right. She died from the abortion pill that your party wants to hand out for free, without parental consent sometimes, to kids in school. She died of sepsis after taking the pill because she, 1, waited too long to see a doctor, 2, because when she finally got to the hospital, she had to wait 20 hours for a very legal medical procedure, not because of abortion laws, but rather because your running mate, Tim, Kamala Harris, imported 184,000 illegals just into the Atlanta area that were overrunning that ER. Drop that mic, yield your time to him to answer those questions. I would have absolutely hammered him on that. But JD took a much more cordial approach, which succeeded in its intended purpose. And what was that? What was the main demo that Trump was trying to win over last night? Suburban women. And J.D. Vance delivered that. My wife was ready to buy the J.D. Vance shirtless 12-month calendar. I tell you, if J.D. Vance had been single, I think she would have left me, moved to Ohio, and married him last night. His performance was brilliant in that category.
That's Newsmax host Carl Higbie, and Carl's wife apparently was not the only woman feeling it, okay? And that's why now some news outlets are saying things like a beard can be threatening to women. A beard can convey aggression or opposition to feminist ideals. Check out a piece that I put up on X earlier this morning. Oh, and speaking of X, Elon announced that his Starlink satellite broadband service is now available for free to everyone in hurricane-impacted areas. How about that? I mean, this guy does more stuff and does it more efficiently than the entire government. All right, let's go back to Carl Higbie.
But this was the line. This was the line of the night that I think was massively overlooked.
A lot of those same economists attack Donald Trump's plans, and they have PhDs, but they don't have common sense and they don't have wisdom, because Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world.
I have been waiting for someone to say that for I don't know how long. J.D. Vance just highlighted the problem with everything in D.C. We have too many people who have read about stuff in books and academia, but not enough people who've actually done it. That is why Washington is broken. And the entire debate, I just kept thinking, can you imagine Tim Walz negotiating with some foreign leader? They would think something's wrong with him. Everyone knows that VP debates usually don't move the needle. Hell, I had to look up who Mitt Romney's running mate was this morning because I honestly didn't even remember that it was Paul Ryan. This one, though, this debate, I think this debate will go down in history. Vance's performance will be noted as the gold standard for the next 5 presidential election cycles. It was like a scene out of Rocky IV with Ivan Drago and the coach, throw the towel! That's literally how Nicole Wallace responded.
It's the audacity. I agree with you that we're in year 9 and no one knows how to cover the audacity. Mm-hmm. The audacity is that someone should have said, stop it, stop. Are you effing kidding me? And they should have dropped that F-bomb, right? I mean, they should have just, this is a debate. This may be the only chance people have to see the difference.
I am so here for that meltdown. Prior to last night, the media actually believed their own narrative. That Vance was the weird one. Look at these 2 pictures. Who do you think was the weird one last night, Anderson Cooper? Do you see why Waltz's entire family is not voting for him? Do you see why his entire upper echelon of the unit he served with, that he didn't go to Iraq with, is speaking out against him? Why seemingly anybody not on the party payroll has nothing good to say about this guy? I can't believe he was even a teacher. Forget vice presidential candidate. Can you imagine that guy in charge of anything? The military? And you think that's bad? Consider this. the first decision Kamala Harris had to make in her run for leader of the free world was her number 2. All the people in the world. She could have chose anybody. She chose this guy?
That is Carl Higbie, host of Frontline, 5 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. Don't miss it. Meanwhile, Newsmax Sr. White House correspondent James Rosen was in the media room at the debate in New York with other White House correspondents. This is what he had to say yesterday.
The consensus among most of the political reporters who were present in the media filing center for last night's big debate was that Senator Vance handily won it. His answers were smoother and more well-rounded, where Governor Walz stumbled from the opening when he was asked about Iran, and then again when he was confronted with his prior false statement to have been present in Hong Kong during the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, a question that most observers expected to be posed to him and for which the governor appeared unprepared. The consensus also was that Senator Vance positioned himself quite well for 2028 should his ticket come up short on election night. Reporting from Midtown Manhattan, James Rosen, back to you.
Thank you, James. And if you watched the debate Tuesday night, if you listened to the NEWSMAX Daily yesterday, you know Republican Senator J.D. Vance fact-checking the fact-checkers who said there would be no fact-checking was one of the big takeaways of the entire debate that everybody's talking about, including Trump-Vance senior campaign advisor Jason Miller on Wake Up America.
It was unbelievable. And here's the thing. If you're going to try to fact check a U.S. senator, maybe don't try to do it on an immigration issue in his own state. You don't think that Senator Vance knows every detail about TPS, how that works? And by the way, to make sure people who are watching right now understand exactly what it is, that there are tens of thousands of people who have been led in this country, thousands alone just in Springfield, but obviously way more than that nationally, that Kamala Harris has given this TPS status to, so that they came in illegally, but then they said, we're going to give you temporary protected status. That's what JD was talking about. So it's not as though they came in through a legal channel. They were just given essentially a reprieve before they're being sent back. JD Vance is going to know this all the way through. One of the things beforehand that JD said he was going to do is when they go to the Springfield issue, and they want to, because we knew that was going to come up, he goes, I'm going to make sure to point out to people that Kamala Harris has turned every community in this country into a border community, whether it be Springfield, Charleroi, Pennsylvania, Prairie du Chien in Wisconsin. And so he was ready for that one. The other thing, too, JD, he's a very, very smart guy. He said, Jason, so the rules are that they can't fact check? Right, on paper. And he goes, so that means they're going to fact check. And he goes, you know what? He said, I'm going to be ready for when they try to fact check, even though they said they're not going to fact check. Well, he was ready.
That was so impressive.
Fact check the fact checkers. And Margaret Brennan, she was just like, that was it. And I think it affected her performance the rest of the night. Yeah. I actually preferred Nora O'Donnell over Margaret Brennan as far as the moderators and their performance go. Just quickly, take me through the rest of the week for the former president. I know he's going to North Carolina, something that Joe and Kamala have yet to do, by the way. And they have all the resources in the world behind them. Donald Trump's going to be there Friday. What's the rest of the week look like him? We're 34 days out now.
Yeah, so on Friday, President Trump will be in North Carolina. J.D. Vance will be in Georgia. They're both then going to be together in Butler and on Saturday, which that will be.
Is that at the same spot where the assassination attempt took place?
Yes, effectively the same.
Will they have somebody on that roof this time?
I have a feeling. I mean, security is very, very tight.
Yeah.
And I think people realize that, especially now with what we see, what's happening with Iran. We realize the hacking of the campaign. Yeah. This is election interference. I mean, real deal election interference. Hacking the campaign. We've seen the intelligence reports from Senator Grassley and others saying they have active plots to try to kill our political leaders. And Joe Biden's at the beach and Kamala Harris is in San Francisco raising money. What the hell kind of leadership is that? If someone were out there threatening a Democrat politician and President Trump was in office, he would send that message so clear and so loud that you're going to be turned into a parking lot if you try to do something to one of our leaders. It's disgusting that Democrats are allowing this to happen.
Again, that is Trump's senior campaign advisor, Jason Miller, in studio with Wake Up America. On his way to North Carolina yesterday, President Biden was asked about Iran's attack on Israel.
Obviously, Iran has gone way is way off course. We're going to put together a joint statement. It hasn't been done yet. It will be done before it's too long, probably at the time we land. And there's going to be some sanctions imposed on Iran.
Well, how about that? After undoing Donald Trump's sanctions on Iran and handing over billions of dollars, now President Biden wants to put sanctions on Iran. Imagine. Israel and Iran was the topic of conversation on yesterday's Newsline with Bianca De La Garza and retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt.
What is the next play here, Blaine, to you? Is it taking out oil fields? What is a counterattack? How does it look? And how does the West need to be, to Jesse Jane's point there, standing by our biggest ally? Or is this something that, we will just see falter until November and perhaps when we have a new administration?
Well, one thing that's very clear to me is that the Israeli government does not care a whit's end about this presidential election anymore, especially since Kamala Harris dressed him down or Bibi Netanyahu down and turned off his microphone. Things have been quite different since that day. And when we talk about counterattacks, it's already begun. In a clandestine way, Israel is already laying the groundwork for what the response to Iran is going to be. You'll see kinetics. It could target oil infrastructure. I think it likely will. But also the nuclear research facilities will probably get tagged. But what I think is probably happening at a covert level is a lot of work amongst the population of Iran that you may never get a better chance to upend this regime than you do right now.
Well, G7 leaders, Jesse Jane, say there's still hope for a diplomatic solution in the Middle East. They believe it's still possible. The Italian government said on Wednesday. Joe Biden speaking with Netanyahu today. All of this, as you mentioned, came up at the vice presidential debate. And all of this, we know, will move forward. Donald Trump is making it very clear that he had a record where nothing like this was happening. Let's play a little bit of Donald Trump's comments on the trail.
I've been talking about World War III for a long time. And I don't want to make predictions because the predictions always come true. We're not going to make, but they are very close to global catastrophe. We have a non-existent president and a non-existent vice president who should be in charge, but nobody knows what's going on.
Who's running the country? As we watch Biden heading to South Carolina, can't even handle a hurricane. Now we have a crisis in the Middle East, Jesse Jane. And the other thing, too, is, of course, we hope for, the hostages to come home. We want a diplomatic solution. But there is a sense of Donald Trump. They're saying they need to have some deterrence. And right now, there is none, despite our troops being stationed over there and more troops on the way.
The placating of terrorism has started, we saw with the Obama administration, and maybe even before that, where we allowed terrorists to essentially stay free. Since 1983, the leader who had attacked the Marine barracks, and over 200 Marines were killed in 1983, was finally taken out by Israel after the Biden-Harris administration told them to cease fire, not to go into Rafah. And basically, Netanyahu said, enough, I'm going to go after your number one terrorist on your terrorist list that has a bounty on his head, and took him out. They have placated and placated. The world wants Israel to cease fire, but is not demanding for the release of those hostages and for the terrorists to lay down their arms. And I think Israel's got the right approach. Enough is enough. We've been dealing with this now for decades. What are we waiting for? Another 9/11?
That's retired Marine Gunnery Sergeant Jessie Jane Duff on Newsmax. President Biden has a busy day on his schedule today after visiting North Carolina yesterday. He's in Florida and Georgia today, touring hurricane damage and meeting with local officials. Vice President Harris is making a campaign stop in Wisconsin today, where she'll be joined by former Republican Liz Cheney. Wow, that's going to be a lot of fun. President Trump has a rally in Saginaw, Michigan this afternoon, 3 o'clock, I believe it is. You'll be able to see it on Newsmax as always. Then he's headed back to North Carolina for a town hall in Fayetteville tomorrow. And let's not forget about the port strike, right? The 40,000 or so, 40,000 union port workers on strike. This is a big deal. It's kind of going under the radar because of all the political stuff that's happening. Well, and this is political, but because of the debate and everything, it is costing the economy billions of dollars a day already.
It's just like going over with COVID again. People rushing the stores. Everybody's panicking.
As I suspected, people are already loading up on paper products, and some experts say you better start Christmas shopping if you haven't already. Stock markets opened in the red again today, courtesy of all the unrest in the Middle East. Oil, as I mentioned, is higher again today. And on a side note, if you know anything about rock music, you know David Gilmour and Roger Waters of Pink Floyd have a very, very strained relationship for some reason. They have not toured together for years, right? However, they did agree yesterday to a deal with Sony Music to sell the band's entire catalog of work for $400 million. That according to Variety. The deal basically includes everything that is Pink Floyd except for songwriting, which is still owned by members of the band that wrote whatever particular song. Last year, Fleetwood Mac made a similar deal with a different company where each member of Fleetwood Mac got almost $100 million separately. Several years ago, Bruce Springsteen sold his music to Sony as well for over $500 million. It's great work if you can get it. All right, be sure to keep up with all of the news on Newsmax at newsmax.com, and make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus for the most complete lineup of all of your favorite shows and guests. And it is another super busy news day. Newsmaxplus.com. Make sure you're signed up. For Greg Kelly Reports, Rob Schmidt Tonight, Carl Higbie Newsline, Ed Henry, Chris Salcedo, Wake Up America, Greta Van Susteren, On Record, and much, much more. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you as always for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Be safe and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's